What's up, everybody? KleverKrok back with preseason power rankings for Season 3 of the GTA. Now, today we are going to do a couple things. First, we're going to kind of talk about how this new draft system worked for everyone, what we think, was effective or not effective about it. Next, we're going to kind of talk about some of the things that people did, trends, and how people picked and stuff like that. And then last, we're going to rank everybody 12 to 1. Basically, I will go first and I'll say who I think got the 12th place in their draft pick based on what they drafted, if they have any consistent weaknesses or flaws in their team, how that might match or not match their play style, and how we think they'll do against other teams that may or may not have like a stronger core or maybe just better matchups against them. So today I've got Mr. Isaac Hall and Mr. Chase Grief. Is that how you say it? I always think I mess it up.
It's okay. It's Grief.
Grief. Okay, I'm pretty sure it's not Grief. So, all right.
So every substitute that ever lived called him Grief.
Alright, so I guess what we'll start with is basically, I think the whole auction system that we did with, there being 100 points that each team has to split among the picks that they have for 11 players, I think that worked a lot better than we did in previous seasons.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that, Brandon. I mean, this really opened it up. Instead of restricting players to you have to have 3 from this tier, 3 from this tier, it really gave players the freedom to make their own team. But they had to strategize about it. They had to give up maybe some more OU picks if they wanted an Uber tier. So I think that it was a really neat way to do the draft that still restricted players from just going all ham on all the high stuff.
Right.
There were some kinks, like letting David get several different picks that kept getting stolen, but once we fixed those out, it worked quite well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a little rough at first because we hadn't done it before, and I think once we decided to, instead of just, let David pick until he got one, and we just did everybody announces one, and we move on, and so on and so forth, I think it picked up really well, and I think everybody that I've talked to, at least, I've talked to most of the guys, and they all said that they were pretty satisfied with their teams, given the fact, this was new and returning coaches as well who said this.
Yeah.
So, I think it's been pretty cool. What are some things that you guys noticed in how people picked, or, just the environment of the auction and, people counterbidding and all that stuff? Either one of you can go, or I can start.
Well, Brandon, I mean,
silence.
I noticed that it really differed by person. Some people, like me, for example, was really willing to go high on the Pokemon that they wanted, and really didn't bid much on Pokemon they didn't plan on before the draft. And you could tell kind of by the way they bidded. Mm-hmm. But some people kind of went on a strategy of if someone picked a good Pokemon, and they altered their preseason strategy based on the new Pokemon that popped up. Maybe to prevent the other person from getting them, or to add them to their own team because they hadn't thought of that. There's also a few players who were very conservative on their points. And I think that's something that they could learn from going into the next draft, is maybe don't be quite so conservative and get some more higher-tiered Pokemon. Because I feel some people pulled out of the draft with several Pokemon in the lower tier with some points to spare that they could have maybe got a higher-tiered Pokemon that gave them a bit more diversity within their team.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Chase?
Yeah, I'm willing. I think the whole conservative aspect of the points worked really well for Zubatman especially. There's hardly any lower tier Pokemon that he had, and he just was like, okay, whatever, I'll just wait for my next one. This is fine.
Well, I agree. I was meaning more of the people who stayed conservative and had the high numbers after, and went on the lower tiers maybe midway through to conserve points. See,
Yeah, I
David
did
didn't
that.
do that. He was conservative in a way that he just held back and waited for the right time to get Pokemon. I don't feel that he was really conservative as much as he was strategizing a way to get higher tiered Pokemon without paying as much.
Yeah, I definitely splurged on my first 4, I will admit. And then I just filled up the rest of the roster with a little bit of PU, a little bit of NU, the good stuff.
Yeah.
But overall, it was there's different strategies for different people. You could clearly see that some people were just bidding others up to make them expend points. Like, I did that. I'm not gonna lie, I did that quite a bit. But the real big one was Feliday. I just want to throw that one out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they definitely just ran people
That last
for their
pick,
money.
though, huh? It bit him in the butt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you raised a good point, though, Chase. I think you could definitely tell the difference between people who knew what they were doing or people who stuck to, like, the plan that they had going into it, and people who were willing to be a little more risky to try and get a better reward. And I think, yeah, it was interesting because, you know, just like Zubatman, he was willing to bid people up, risking, like, getting certain Pokemon, and it usually, I'd say 75% of the time, it paid off for him because it allowed him to have more freedom to make stronger picks later in the game. And I think what I failed to do in the first half of the draft was think about the fact that, like, if I draft higher tier stuff now and I don't wait till later, then people are going to still, like, make me spend more points, whether they're trying to bid me up or they're trying to, you know, get that same Pokemon that I'm trying to get. And in doing so, I think it ended up costing me, you know, not getting, like, 1 or 2 Pokemon that I actually ended up wanting at the end. So,
I guess it's a matter of...
I think the first 2 rounds...
You cut out there. What'd you say, Isaac?
Hello?
I can hear you
Hello.
now.
Well, I was just thinking the first 2 rounds was really a good time to get UU Pokemon. Some of the better UU Pokemon, just because people were trying to be conservative with maybe they wanted an Uber tier or were still planning on getting quite a few OU Pokemon tiers, and they weren't as willing to bid on those UU Pokemon as they were the OUs and the Ubers. Because many of those didn't go near as high as I thought they would.
Yeah, you raise a good point. I think it's interesting that, like I just, like, was originally, like, my plan was just to try and focus on getting these certain Pokemon and having a backup set to also get if I wasn't able to get them. And I ended up trying to switch it up once I realized I wasn't getting certain Pokemon, Isaac. And, like, just when I realized that, I not only had to go back to the drawing board to figure out what I could do to fix what I had at that point after the first half of the draft, but also I had to think about how my strategy was going, because the first night I was simply just trying to get things for my team, and I was, like, so nervous about just getting that. And the second night I was a lot more risky, and I think in some ways it affected my team, but I don't really think it like, negatively hurt me. And I think I had learned after those first couple rounds, like you were saying, to, like, you know, I should have thought about getting, while people were so focused on getting, like, you know, high, you know, ranking OU Pokemon or Ubers, like, in the first 2 rounds, I should have thought about getting something like a UU Pokemon that I wanted instead of waiting till the very end. But I didn't.
Yeah.
So, that's a good point.
And then a lot of it has to do with how well you stuck to your original plan. I stuck to it really well until the first draft ended. I was like, oh my god, I only have 34 or 35 points left.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of a scramble of what do I do now? So...
Well, I pretty much hit my preseason pitch spot on, so...
Yeah, I think for me, after the first night, I had to go back to the drawing board, not so much because I didn't get what I wanted, but more because I was looking for certain type coverage at that point, and the first 3 picks were exactly what I wanted in the exact order I picked them. And then after that, I'll get into this more when I talk about my draft, but after that I was kind of trying to be a bit more risky, and I was trying to think about things that I could bid up that wouldn't really hurt me from getting if I ended up getting it. And I mean, there were still some things that I wish I had done differently, but I don't think it was the worst thing that happened, to be honest. But
yeah.
Alright, well, now we'll go ahead and jump into the selection. So the way this will work is I'll start off and say who I think got 12th place for their draft and all that, and explain why in a brief kind of way, and then I'll let Isaac go, and then Chase, you can go. And I'll just say the 12th place, and then after that happens, I'll start with 11th, and then you guys can go in that same order, so on and so forth until we get all the way through all 12, up to first place. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Alright, so I did have some trouble, like, kind of organizing them in a numerical order. Not in the sense that, like, I don't have an actual list, but I kind of realized that I kind of chunked people together, like in like groups of 2s or 3s in the order of like. But I ended up, obviously coming up with reasons why I think one team is slightly better or their matchup is slightly better than others. But it was a bit difficult to kind of come out with like who would be in this certain order and stuff. But I eventually came to the realization that I think my 12th pick is the Maple Grove Gengars. And I've got a couple reasons, and I think part of it is that, like, he's gotten a lot better since the first season. He's, you can see that on his individual page. Like, the first season, like, everybody was new to it, and so everybody was still trying to figure out how to play properly in it. And so he didn't do so great in Season 1, but he did a lot better in Season 2. And now he's returning for Season 3 now after the Monotype League. He took a break. So I'm really expecting a lot from him. I think he can definitely do a lot. But I did notice, like, in his draft picks, like, there were a couple things that I noticed. Like, he only has, like, one really viable special attacker and then one that's fairly decent. And out of those special attackers, only one of them's fast with a choice scarf. And I think that's kind of a dangerous way to play, to not have like viable sweepers, whether they're fast or slow, to like have that coverage. So I think that's kind of something that I really noticed, that like if you don't have like that like type coverage is an important thing, but I think not having stat coverage in that sense.
Or a balance.
Yeah, balance is probably a better way to say it. I think that ends up being a real challenge, for people who have, like, things like Chansey, Milotic, Blissey. So, I think that's...
Yeah.
I guess that's the transverse, actually. Things, Pokemon that have, like Ferrothorn and, I don't know, anything with Intimidate or Rough Skin, or just honestly like a high defensive Pokemon like Cofagrigus, like they're going to have a real challenge getting through those things without losing their sweepers in the process. And
of course.
Yeah, so I noticed that, and then I also noticed that, and I'll get into this with the next team I picked too, but they ended up having way too many points left over that they could have really used, like the last two Pokemon, or the last three Pokemon, to be honest, they could have gotten some more viable choices. Not saying that they're bad choices, but they could have gotten some more viable choices with what they have, but they ended up not going with it. And then the last thing I also noticed is they have a really common weakness to a combination of ice and knockoff. And I think that, like, that coupled with the fact that they don't have much balance in the fact that they only have, really just some physical sweepers and a couple special sweepers, I think that's going to be a challenge for them. And they drafted Delphox is, in my opinion, their main special sweeper, and it's weak to knockoff, and it's really strongest when it has a choice scarf. And so a knockoff is just going to blow it away, and they don't really have much to handle that very well. in my opinion. So that's kind of just what I thought about the Gengars. I do think that they can definitely show and prove me wrong. They've got a good setup. I just think that there's some balancing issues.
Well, as far as my list of 12, I'd have to agree with you hitting the Gengars at 12. As far as just the straight draft, they weren't the ones that I considered at the sheer bottom. But at the same time, though, I feel like some better coaches or some unpredictable coaches may have had a draft that I personally didn't see the Pokemon going many places. But I see it the same reason as you do. I mean, they had too many points left over that they could have used elsewhere. Mm-hmm. I know you were saying their last 3 picks, but I feel maybe somewhere more in the middle they could have used those points a bit better on, a bit earlier on, and maybe got themselves a bit more balance within their team. But I would have to agree with you on putting the Gengars at 12. Chase?
Yeah, I guess it's got to be unanimous in this decision. You know, he has improved, but he's still just he has much more to go with in terms of skill, and it also probably would have been better if he was actually there. And I feel like if he was actually there to formulate his team better, the Mucks would have got it in my book. But because the Mucks drafted for the Gengars, and, you know, Delphox being their only special sweeper, the Gengars have to be my 12th pick.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is challenging because he wasn't available that night, but that's what worked for everybody else. And so it is unfortunate, and I know that probably played into it on some level. But I think there's like this phase for people when it's a transition from just playing Pokemon to like learning how to play more competitively. Is like you play the game for fun, and when you play the game for fun, you pick only your favorites, no matter what types or balance they have, and then you just play with those, and it's a real challenge to get from that to picking Pokemon that you may not consider even Pokemon you like, but might be effective to balance out your team. And I feel like that could be part of it, too. And, you know, to transition as well, I'd say that's kind of why I put the Mucks at 11, is because, like, I'm just looking at his team, and I don't know. I feel like he's done better this season than he has, you know, in the past. But he has this serious weakness to ground and, like, to hazards. And he, like, I literally put, like, Earthquake equals death, because he just has, like, I think he only has 1 Levitate Pokemon. I think. I could be wrong. He may not even have a single Flyer or Levitate Pokemon.
He's got Dragonite and Electros.
That's actually the Gengars.
Oh, we're going after the Mucks now? My bad.
Yes, we're talking about the Mucks now.
But you do raise a good point that even, you know, the Gengars only had 1 Levitate Pokemon. They don't have anything, you know, to handle an Earthquake. But I think that the Mucks have it even worse with their draft, because, like, they have nothing that can, like, you know, evade that, and they've got 4 Pokemon weak to ground, and I don't think any of his Pokemon resist it, for that matter, except for maybe Tangrowth. But, you know,
he's got more than 4 weak against ground, doesn't he?
Do what?
He's got more than 4 weak against ground, doesn't he?
It looks like it's just 4.
It's a lot of neutral hits. I think only Tangrowth is the only one that avoids it. So, like, if he has an opponent each week that has a good ground Pokemon that could use a strong Earthquake, or even just a strong attacker that has Earthquake, he's, like, required to bring Tangrowth each week. And you can counter Tangrowth pretty well if you know that he's going to bring a physically defensive, you know, Tangrowth. You just bring an Ice Beamer, no matter how strong it is on special attack.
Flamethrower.
Take him out. But,
or Flamethrower as well.
Or Flamethrower.
There's several people out there who have strong fire types.
Yeah. And Ice Beam also does a number on most of his Pokemon, too. But
Yeah,
I think they shared the issue of like they wanted to pick a lot of Pokemon that they liked, and not necessarily have thought too much about which Pokemon might have balanced out their team. Because I think I look at their first 4 picks and I'm like, okay, that's solid. They've got Garchomp, which is a very reliable attacker, as well as setup or hazard setup, and it's got rough skin, so it can definitely punish physical sweepers. He's got Slowking, who can take the ice beams for Garchomp. He's got Muck, who has like priority, and it's a poison type, which is important for those fairies. And then Mega Absol has priority, it's fast, and it has magic bounce. I'm like, great. Then I see Goodra, and I'm like, okay, that's still good. You don't really need Goodra with Garchomp and Slowking. Those two kind of fulfill his thing. I see Seismitoad, and I'm like, okay. Well, I mean, I guess it's fine because he's got Sap Sipper on Goodra, but I still don't understand why he went for another bulky guy. And then he's got Zebstrika, which is, good, but he's already got those electric immunities, and there was probably, I don't even think anybody picked Jolteon, and Jolteon's definitely a better electric choice than Zebstrika. And so I just keep looking down, and I see it kind of get really inconsistent after those first 4 picks. So that's kind of just my thoughts. He didn't, like I said, with the Gengars and the Mucks, they both kind of didn't, they should have used their points more effectively in the middle or towards the end of the draft.
Yes, I completely agree with you yet again on this one. I mean, his point usage there, he had the most points left out of anybody with 22 at the end of the draft. He easily could have drafted, as you said, a better electric type than Zebstrika, or someone else there along the line somewhere. I would list him as my number 11 as well. So many of the same reasons you have. Chase?
Yeah, he's got to be my 11, just for sheer fact that he was there and the Gengars weren't. I believe it would be reversed if the Gengars would have been there.
I agree.
But his Pokemon choices were very interesting. Yeah, Zebstrika is a really poor choice. Nothing I can really say good about Zebstrika when he could have got maybe even Mega Magnetric, because Absol's good on its own. You have Absol Super Luck, and then
it's also
Sniper
got Justified,
I
think.
Yeah, Justified too, but you give it Super Luck, Scope Lens, and then have somebody baton pass a focus energy over to it, and it's a monster. It doesn't even care anymore. But
yeah, I think
there's this.
I think it's pretty clear there's like a difference between like some of the ones that we're talking about now and like some of the picks we'll talk about later on. But the cool thing here, and I just want to like state this, is that even though we're being like critical of like the teams we're talking about, it's because we want to see them like improve and maybe get some perspective, and we want them to see that like, okay, this is like something that somebody else sees, and this is something I might want to keep in mind for the next draft. And I will be so happy if they prove me wrong and they use their team effectively this season.
Oh yeah,
I'm so happy of that. But I'm just kind of analyzing it for the purpose of people, wanting to get some perspective.
Yeah, who's to say that, they don't have some kind of great strategy? For example, like me with Mega Adron last season, nobody would have expected that coming from Mega Adron, and yet he pulled out number 1 player in the season. So, they could pull anything from any Pokemon as far as we know. Something unique that we're not going to expect. And I truly hope that they pull something like that and prove me wrong. But as of right now, from before the season and looking at what they have and what they've done in the past, I would feel this is where they need to be.
Yeah, and I think that's the cool thing about the counter team format is like, even if like your draft didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, or maybe you just are still trying to learn how to like do it better, like you can still pull out some creative stuff and get some wins. The challenge with that is that if you don't match like the creativity with the execution and the skill of that stuff, it only works once, and that's the challenge. Because even though in the GTA typically you only play against each team once before the tournament, the challenge is if you make it to that tournament, you can't pull off the same stuff you did before. Or if you do, you have to do it in a different way. And so...
You have to do it better.
Yeah. I think the challenge, too, is a lot of people might be tempted, especially players who haven't played for as long in the GTA. They might want to pick Pokemon that are good, but they're too predictable. And predictability is honestly one of the worst things that you can have in the counter team format, because then you just know what they're going to do.
True.
You can prepare. That's why I think Bisharp, even though it's a really good Pokemon, you bring Hidden Power Fighting or like Will-O-Wisp, but it's useless, and you know what it's going to carry, you know?
Yeah.
So I guess we'll go ahead and continue on to the next one, which I put the apparitions, the Alakazam apparitions, down for number 10. So the reason I did this is the last time they played, they also had a pretty impressive roster. However, some of it was kind of predictable, and some of it was like he was still trying to figure out what they did. He wasn't too familiar with competitive, which is fine. And so I see that like he did do a little bit better with like balancing his team. However, I do see some crucial flaws in Ice and Electric. So if you carry any sort of ice attack, his Mega Salamence has honestly very few options to switch out from. So, you know, threats like Starmie or anything that has Ice Shard, he's kind of in trouble because he doesn't...
Or Avalanche.
Yeah, because, I mean, even though Skarmory has, like, impressive physical defense, it takes neutral hits from Ice Beam or Ice Shard, and then all you need is a Hidden Power Fire or a Fire Electric attack, and Skarmory's dead after that. So, I'd say between that and the fact that, like, he's still kind of learning the competitive scene... that's why I put him where I put him.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. I do have him as my number 10. I had him really close with my number 9, which we'll discuss next. But, I mean, and part of the reason is, I mean, we have kind of seen what he's got, and he is, I mean, still fairly new to it and learning and improving, I mean, just as much as some of us did. Heck, I was new to competitive my first season. But I agree, Ice will really just hurt his team, and he doesn't have much choices to switch into from that. And that's really going to hurt, having one type that can really pound several of his players. So that's the reason I kind of had him as number 10. Chase?
Well, I had mine. He's my number 10, but mine's more because of the balance issue. You look at his first 4 picks, and you've got physical hitter, physical wall, physical hitter.
Granted, I will interject here and just say that Mega Salamence can be used as a mixed sweeper as well, but continue.
It can be, but mixed sweepers normally aren't as good, at least in my opinion, as full-fledged.
Yeah.
Because if you look at its stats, Mega Salamence does have 120 special attack, but its 145 attack is what makes it really good, coupled with the Dragon Dance.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't see the best balance.
Yeah, I guess I didn't notice this when I looked at it at first, but like you do raise a good point in that like if you look at all of his Pokemon even, he only has really Azelf and Entei. But Entei's usually a mixed sweeper because it's got a stronger attack and it's got Sacred Fire. So
does he? Oh wow, never mind then. Just Azelf then.
Yeah, so he's really only got Azelf, and Azelf is a stealth rocker, it's a baton passer. It can be definitely a strong special sweeper, but it's not always necessarily a special sweeper, and so I think that'll be kind of a challenge for him. But I hope that he does better. I hope he really uses the strengths that he does have to where he puts so much pressure that they can't exploit that weakness, but we shall see. So, number 9, I actually put one of our newcomers at Black Ice. I put them there simply because I mean, one thing is that he's new to this whole scene, and even though I know him personally, and I know he's very strategic, he's also very creative, which make for a good combination in the counter team format. I think just the lack of experience is always a challenge for anybody who starts. It makes it really hard to know how to prepare, even if you can be strategic and creative. But I do notice a couple like consistent things. Is that he's really weak to ice as well, and the only thing
And
that he
fires.
yeah, the only thing he has to like fight against it is really weak to getting Will-O-Wisped, or just burned in general. And so
Yeah.
and Will-O-Wisp and Scald are so common that it's just going to be a real challenge to see kind of where he goes from that.
Yeah. I would have to add Black Ice as mine as well. I mean, where he's a newcomer, he could have some kind of amazing strategy coming out the gate, or he could be like several of our newcomers and be new on the scene of competitive play anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember back when I was new to competitive, I mean, I really was kind of wondering what to do, when to do it, and how to pull stuff off. So I think he's one that may end up improving as the season goes on and kind of seeing how his Pokemon play.
Mm-hmm.
And I look forward to seeing what he's going to bring to the table. But, I mean, as you said, kind of ice and fire, I mean, he's really got a couple weaknesses that's really going to hurt his team in the coming season. But if he can find ways around that, and I know Mega Kangaskhan itself can end up being a nasty hit to some people. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see what he's going to pull off. Chase, how about you?
Just great pick in Mega Kangaskhan. I hate that thing. Mega Kangaskhan, Ferrothorn, Bane. But what else does he have besides that? Roserade? Leopard? It's a balance issue, and it's also a lack of experience.
Mm. Yeah, I would
But
agree.
he's my 9 as well.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting because I know somewhat of like how he likes to play, and he likes to surprise people, and I think that's going to be really interesting to see how he plays out. And I think some key players to like watch for will probably be Liepard, Sigilif, and just stuff like that, things you wouldn't expect. But I could also be wrong.
Yeah.
He could very well use the strengths that he does have and not just catch people off guard, or he could do both. And I'm interested to kind of see where he takes that.
Well, whenever I ran
Agreed,
Durant, when I did Durant, I really like Durant because it's Truant, and then it has Entrainment. So you could just entrain the other Pokemon to be Truant, and you just sit there and just loaf around for every turn or so.
It's a really good way to start setup because it forces them to switch out, and you can make some good predictions too. I've seen it.
It's
played
really
pretty well.
entertaining. Especially just sit out there, Calm Mind, Protect, Calm Mind, Protect.
I know. So number 8 for me, I was, again, the next 2 picks I kind of went back and forth between, but I ended up picking. I noticed some key things that are also kind of like a balance issue. Is I picked the non-essential NPCs because they have some strong attackers and they've got some good bulk on both sides and they can really be creative. However, they don't have any flying types, and even though they have bulk, they still don't have any dedicated physical walls that can really just tank hits for the weaknesses that they have. So that's kind of, it's short and sweet, and I know that like they're gonna, like that they're ready to like, I think that they're still going to have a much better season than their first season in Season 2, but I do wonder if they're going to be able to handle, like, earthquakes and just having a physical wall to switch Mega Lucario out from, so that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, I kind of see where you're going with that, but my number 8 personally was Feliday. And I had it really close with the NPCs, and I was kind of bouncing back and forth. But Feliday, I mean, they have Aegislash and Pyroar, and I know they've ran Pyroar before and done well with it. But also their Mega Houndoom is another fire type, and neither one of them have a lot of bulk. And yet again, he also doesn't have a flying type or a solid, effective Pokemon to switch into from the Earthquake. I mean, on top of that, Aegislash is also weak against that. So, I mean, and Toxicroak as well. So, I mean, they're really sitting there, and Earthquake can really wall him fairly well. So, me personally, I had Feliday as my number 8.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that. There's several Pokemon all in a row that are weak to Earthquake, and it looks to me like six. From Aegislash down to Diancie, six Pokemon weak to Earthquake. And Pyroar and Mega Houndoom do the exact same thing. It's just Mega Houndoom does it slightly better. So, Aegislash is good. It's really kind of situational in my opinion. If you have someone faster than it, and it switches to stance, it's Flamethrower, easy peasy. But really, yeah. It's more of how will everything play out.
Yeah, they have some interesting picks.
How he uses Pokemon to the best of his abilities.
Yeah. I had them at 7. There were just some kind of confusing picks, and I know some of them he just like ended up like trying to mess with people and it burned him. And well, mainly Slaking is who I'm thinking of, but just Aeron, like I know what he's gonna do with it, but I think that's just a bit too predictable for the counter team format. I think if you know how to prepare for it, you can take care of it like really easily. So if he ever brings it, you kind of know what to do. Maractus, I just kind of I know that there are like some uses for it, but like I'm not sure if it's two-dimensional enough for it to be useful. And then I do notice also that they have the same issue, which I didn't notice before when I was making this list, that they don't have any flying types. I think they don't even have any levitators, to be honest, either, which the NPCs do have. So that's going to be kind of a challenge. They can't really take knockoffs that well. I mean, they have Mega Houndoom and Toxicroak, but and Deontay kind of, but knockoff is going to wreck Aegislash and Starmie, and to have to switch into one of your frail Pokemon to take that is just kind of a rough thing to deal with.
Yeah, kind of
agreed on that. So, as I already said, my number 7 is the NPCs, for many of the same reasons that you listed them last time. So I really don't feel a need to go into all that since you already did, but I mean, I foresee them and Feliday both coming out and hopefully doing well this season. I mean, I hope they pull something unique and that can really catch people off guard. And if they can do that, they have a good chance to even throw my number 1 and 2 for a loop. So I look forward to playing everybody this season. Chase?
I think my number 7 is actually the Wobbuffets. Keldeo and Charizard X are absolute monsters, but they're so predictable. What are you going to do with Charizard? You're going to Dragon Dance. What are you going to do with Keldeo? You're going to Sacred Sword. He's got a lot of really high attack. Really predictable and really easy to counter.
Mm.
Fair enough on that one.
All right.
And I've never actually seen him play too, so.
Yeah, so I do know that he's familiar with, I believe, I don't know if he's familiar with Showdown, but I know he's familiar with the tiers of Smogon, as well as just playing some competitive, so I know he knows that much. This is his first time in the counter team format, so as a newcomer that will be a challenge. But I actually, for number 6, the next couple were actually kind of, I don't know, I kind of just winged it, but the next pick I had for number 6 was actually the Raikous, because like I look at the first 4 picks and I'm like, crap, this is gonna suck. They've got Mega Slowbro, who's not only a strong like special sweeper and has many different sets, and can also be physically like tanky if he just wants to run him as a tank. He's got Blaziken, which I don't even want to like talk about because it's so broken. He's got Raikou, who's also a strong special sweeper that you can run Scarf, Life Orb, Expert Belt, Specs, and it's broken as well. Well, not broken, but it's very strong for what it does. And then I see Umbreon, and I've seen him use it, I think, every season now, and it's just always been a consistent tank that's just like been so reliable for him. And I'm like, sheesh, this is this is gonna be hard, like facing him, and just figuring out like how to deal with those first 4, and then also just trying to figure out like, if he brings those first 4, what of those other ones is he gonna pick? But the one thing that I did notice that kind of made me think about putting him in 6th was just the fact that like I see Blaziken, and I see who else? Thunderous, who's more of a special attacker, but I really only see one physically offensive threat. And I know that he's got a lot of creative stuff that he can work with, and so maybe that's me not seeing it. But I see that as kind of a challenge for him, especially like with Pokemon like that. Like he's got great bulk, he's got great like coverage with types, and he's got a lot of strong special attackers, and he's got ways of handling most things. But when it comes to dishing out physical damage, I only see one, though broken, threat for physical attackers.
Yeah, well, I can kind of see where you're coming from there, but that's not who I have at my number 6, and some reason I've got the feeling that from here on out, the rest of these are close enough. We're really going to have a mixed up opinion, all 3 of us, on our top 6, because I think we're all close to agreeing on our top 6. I know Chase put the Wobbuffets at 7. I have them as my number 6. So, and my reason is kind of because, as Chase said, some of the Pokemon they picked are, typically fairly predictable on how they're ran. Are great that they just picked. They have Milotic that ran great, and Charizard X and Keldeo. Really, just me personally, and maybe I'm just not seeing it, I don't see anything super great that they have that just stands out to me that these Pokemon go well together or something like that. And also, where they're just new, makes them a bit of a loose cannon. They could be great. They could be number 1 in the league at the end of this, and at the same time, they could be the worst in the league at the end of this. So without me really knowing their coaching style or anything that they've done so far, I've placed them in the middle of the pack at number 6. Chase?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the NPCs here. It's just either or with the Wobbuffets and the NPCs. So, they have a really good basis with Gardevoir, Florges, Mega Lucario, Rotom Wash, but the rest of them are just in my opinion. Metagross can do really good things, but the Shiftry pick is really what gets me, because Shiftry is absolutely worthless in my opinion.
I think the only way it's worth running is a Sun team. So, and he doesn't have Ninetales, so.
Yeah.
Let's see. So for number 5, this is where I kind of put the Wobbuffets, and you made some good points. So I'm a bit hesitant on having him in 5th, but I do notice that like he's got his Firewater Grass core, and he's also got his Fairy Dragon Steel core, and he got those fairly early, and those 2 cores are really like important in this league. And then he's also got Sticky Webs. He's got a fast electric type, which has been proven to be like an important aspect to have in this. But I do notice that like he doesn't have much physical bulk. He's got Conkeldurr, but it's not a tank. He's got let's see. He's got Milotic, which is an incredible special tank, but I don't see much. Like Klefki is more of a hazards and like disruptor more than a tank, and so I just kind of see like some bulk missing there. But like in general, he does have some pretty good bulk. It's just like on the physical side, dedicated, I don't see it.
I can see that. Me personally, and y'all may completely disagree with me on this, but my number 5 was the Charmeleonaires. And my reasoning is, I start looking at their first 3 picks, and I'm like, man, they have Greninja, they have Pinsir, they have Mew. Those are some heavy hitters. But kind of after that, their picks, for me, kind of fell off. It's like they spent too many points on Greninja, and now they're trying to make up with some lower picks. And I know Quagsire moved up to the OU, but at the same time, though, I feel he's more of a UU pick. Personally. Especially in my past opinion, my past experiences, I've never had a problem out of them. But even still, I feel like they can pull something really unique and really powerful out of the team they've got. The Charmillionaires have always been known to be a strong team, and I foresee them to be the same thing this season. As I said, my top 5 is definitely really questionable about who's where, because that's really going to depend on how it goes in the season. Because all 5 coaches are really top-notch. Chase?
Are you there, Jake?
Chase?
If you're on mute...
Oh my, I am on mute. Hello. I'm back. Alright, so my top 5 is really just a matter of how everything plays out, how everyone utilizes their Pokemon to their best skill set.
Agreed there.
And I think that it's Fakemon would be my 5. You've got Cloyster, which is a one-trick pony. Hoopa is very, very easy to kill. Just knock off. Blissey, knock off. Meloetta, knock off. Chandelure, knock off. Hydreigon's nice. Yeah, I like the Hydreigon pick really late in the draft. Hydreigon's one of my personal favorites. I wish I would have gotten it. Pika Libre, really?
I'm sorry I had to.
I know you had to. I wish it was viable. I do. But I do like his team. I just want to see it run exceptionally well. I want to see it exceed my expectations.
Yeah, well, just a little inside knowledge on the team. I think some of the strategies he has in store might surprise you, so.
I bet. I wonder how you're getting all this inside knowledge.
I don't know. I mean, it's like the coach is inside my head or something.
Oh, my.
Yeah, I mean, he just feeds me this stuff. But...
let's see. So I guess for number 4, I actually have Fakemon. Knockoff was something that kind of stuck out to me because obviously you've got Cloyster and Mega Aggron that don't care about knockoff. Volcanion doesn't care that much about knockoff. But then you got Hoopa, Latias, Blissey, Meloetta, Chandelure, all care about knockoff very much so. Then you have Hydreigon, which was a good pick. But I see that, and I also see that, like, they don't have many physical wall options. They have Blissey, but unfortunately, like, unlike Chansey, it can't be physically bulky. You've got Mega Aggron, but, like, Volcanion is also fairly bulky, but neither of them, like, if Mega Aggron is run as a physical wall, then it can't fulfill itself as, like, a physical sweeper, and which is fine, but, like, that means that, like, you can basically depend, if you have some strong physical sweepers and you're going up against this team, you know that, like, he's going to have to rely on something like that in order for it to be a balanced team. And then I see that there's very few hazard removal options outside of sacrificing Cloyster or just Latios, and so I think I see those two, and I see those are good removal options, but at what cost, I guess. But I do see that, like, Mega Aggron was proven to be run really well on this team in the Monotype League, being the MVP of that season. Cloyster has proven itself to be strong in the fact that it's a second place, I think, almost every season, if not every season. But top 3, top 2, Volcanion, I think, is going to have an incredible debut in the league this season. I see Blissey, and I'm like, great, that's a good, option for special walls. And so I see some good stuff going on, but I just noticed that there's just, like, knockoff is going to be a pain in the butt, as well as just, like, options for physical bulk. So...
yeah, I kind of see where y'all are coming from there, and I hate to sound like I'm tooting my own horn and not picking me at 4, but I don't have me at 4. I'm sorry. I had the Raikous at 4, and the reason I picked me over the Raikous and Charmillionaires is just because I felt as the Fakemons pulled off more of what they were planning beforehand. Whereas the others had to pull more of a change mid-draft, and as you said, going down the Raikous list, you've got those first 4 that's just top-notch. And then after that, it kind of looked like, well, I don't know what I'm trying to pick here. So I feel he's going to pull something great this season and just blow my mind and destroy me like he always does. But for whatever reason, I guess you could say we're kind of rivals going at it. But he typically knocks me off my high horse whenever I'm doing good. So, but I had to put him at 4 just to say that I was better than him on my list.
Well, my 4th pick was the Charmillionaires. And, you know, I know what my plan is, but it's definitely nowhere near the top. But I still think, even though I haven't been able to beat the Charmillionaires yet, this will be the year. I feel like feeling confident that I might be able to do it this year.
You go for it. But I'm going to beat you this year.
Oh, you have, I hope. It's been a while.
For your sake.
It's been what? Did I beat you season 1?
I don't remember.
I think so, but I think that's the only time I've beat you, so.
I know you didn't beat me the past 2 seasons.
No. This last one was awful, but.
Ooh, Houndoom. But the
yeah, I know.
Charmillionaires have a really nice bulk in Tentacruel and Quagsire. Greninja is awesome. Greninja's really broken with Protean. And Mega Pinsir is a beast late game sweeper.
Yeah,
after that, he's got a ton of solid picks, but they're really situational. And it's kind of, I know what I was doing. I know I screwed up a bit, but I still think everything turned out better than the Charmillionaires.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is actually where it gets really close for me. So number 3, I have the Charmillionaires, and the reason I have him higher up on the list probably is because I recognize, or I see from my experience battling him, every time I fought him, he's always been super aggressive, and it's worked out for him. That's just his playstyle. He loves just putting so much pressure on the opponent that they can't even attempt to do what they were planning to do. All they can do is just try and stop him from doing what he's doing. And then beyond that, it gets really challenging to try and focus on what you need to do to put the pressure back on him. And he does that really well. He's done that since the start of when he started the GTA in Season 2. And I see that he's got Greninja, who's fast and obviously can put a lot of pressure. It's got, of course, the incredible Protean coverage. He's got Mega Pinsir, who's strong, and he's got really good coverage because he's got Bug, Flying, and Fighting. And honestly, he's got Earthquake as well, so he can hit really hard. Mew, obviously, is I think one of the best Pokemon for this format because it has so much coverage. You can run it any way you want. And then I see, after that, he does have this bulk, but he's got this coverage of, all these Pokemon that can sweep and set up, and that's, what he does, and that's what he's good at when it comes to making those decisions and messing with people, those mind games when he's trying to set up or making them think that he's going to. He's good at that, and that's what scares me. That's what scares me because this team can do that. And then the one thing that I really see that put him at 3 instead of higher up is he has incomplete cores. He has water and fire but no grass. He has Fairy and Dragon, Fairy and Dragon, but no Steel unless I'm missing it. And those 2 cores are, you don't have to have, either one, but if you have those, you should have all 3. That's the way I see it, and especially in this format, type coverage is important, and he misses that in this way, I think.
Fair enough. I mean, as we've kind of stated before, I picked the Fakemon as my number 3. But then again, I think that's kind of, and I think the reason me and Chase, because by the sound of it, it sounds like he picked himself as number 3, is we've really got an idea of what we're going to run. So as the insight of what I'm going to run, I mean, I feel that I had myself at number 3. I mean, really, I've got some of my weaknesses covered with some Pokemon, like Chandelore's water weakness with Volcanion, or Mega Aggron and Volcanions' ground weakness with Latias. So I felt like I covered several of those, and I've also played around on the OU quite a bit and haven't lost a match yet with my team. So I feel like I've got a fairly solid team. I think the biggest issue with me is as a coach, I'm still a bit inexperienced and don't know how to maybe counteract some Pokemon as well. But other than that, that's why I had the Fakemon at 3. Chase?
Well, I have myself at 3 because, again, I know what I'm doing. I've got what I want as my first 4, and then I have Gorbis, which you guys are bagging on, but, I like my Shell Smash Baton Pass. It might be a little far-fetched, but I think situationally it might be able to pull through, and I could maybe send it over to Gastrodon or a Lomomola. Do something really funky like that. And then Dusclops is a monster with an Eviolite. You want to talk about broken defense over 500 and special defense if they're both fully invested, regardless if it's a improved nature or not. It's an absolute monster. Its only drawbacks are, it's poor health. It's got 40 base health.
Yeah.
But, I haven't performed well when it comes under pressure, and I did pick very weird picks from Gorbis down to KleverKrok, or at least a Lomomola, because KleverKrok is nice.
Yeah, KleverKrok has pulled some nice stuff here in the past, so I would never count him out.
Man, I love KleverKrok. He's amazing.
Yeah.
All right.
Off to the top 2, which I don't know about you all, but obviously we all had the same top 2, and I felt personally that the top 2 was a definite defined, these are the top 2.
Yeah.
Now, I think the line between them is a lot closer than the line between 5 through 3, which I think we all had the same 5 through 3. Or no, not quite.
Close to it. Close to it. But I think the line but just between those two are so thin that it could really, either way, would be perfectly acceptable. Yeah, I think the challenge for me is... So at 2, I put Zubatman, and I the problem here is I see clearly what things can be done to him to exploit his weaknesses, and situationally and with the right Pokemon, I think it's really easy to take advantage of his weaknesses. And I'd say, between ice and fighting, he's got, first of all, he is a very balanced and experienced player, not only in the draft format, but competitively. He knows what things do. He can be creative. He knows how to do all of that, but he has, a fairly strong ice weakness, a fairly strong flying weakness, and then he's also got fighting after that. And so,
fire.
That plus hazards, he's got some hazard removal, but it's still just a challenge, I think, to say that, I don't know, I see he's got some really strong balanced Pokemon, like Hippowdon, Mega Venusaur, Jirachi, Serperior. He's got Manaphy, Togekiss, Clefable, but I think some of these Pokemon are also a bit predictable in what they do, so in order for me to, be corrected in putting him in second, I just need to see what he does this season and see him prove me wrong by being more creative, because I think that's the only way he'll prove himself to be the best in the league this season.
Yeah, and I think he totally has a shot at that, but as of right now, I do have him at number 2. Partly for kind of your reasons for the top weaknesses, but mostly just because I'm more worried about you than I am him. That may be a personal thing, but I know me and Chase personally, the couple times either of us has beat you in the past, we text each other and we're like, hey, did you watch my match? I totally just beat Brandon. We treat it like an award in itself. I know that's crazy to say, but the first season, you were unstoppable. And you've consistently been that way. But David has also been a threat every time he plays. He's always one of the ones I'm looking out for from the start of the season. Wood, I'm looking to probably stop me flat, and I've got to come up with something super creative to try to counter him. So, but I had him at my number 2 for those reasons. Chase?
Yeah, he's my number 2. I'm just gonna say Blaziken and move on.
All right. Well, okay. So the number 1, obviously, I had, and I kind of feel guilty doing this since it's my team, because I don't like being that guy that's like, oh, I picked myself as the best, but like, out of all the teams that I've drafted before and how much I like enjoyed those teams and felt like they worked well together, I feel like I have drafted a very balanced team, except for a few issues, which I'll get to here in a second. I think I have a lot of answers to, I think, most of the main threats when it comes to the players that were drafted. You know, you've got Blaziken. Well, I've got Talonflame with Gale Wings, so I've got Brave Bird. You know, I also have, you know, Static Zapdos. I have Scizor for the fairies. I have a Rapid Spinner and a couple Defoggers. I've got an Intimidator, a Rough Skinner. I've got Sylveon, which I don't know how I picked up. And then I've also got Mega Sableye, who's got the ability to completely just stop all hazard removal, because Defog doesn't work with a Magic Bounce user on the field. Rapid Spin doesn't work on a Ghost. So, and then I've got Mega Sableye and Chansey for my Wall Core. And then I've also got like other answers as well. And then I've got Weavile and Talonflame, who both have, they hit hard, they're fast, and they both have priority. And so I know like I might be bragging some, but like I really feel like strongly about like my draft this season. My biggest challenge will be trying to still prepare enough to make my team as good as it looks, if that makes sense. My problem in the past sometimes is that I either have the ability to make bad decisions during the match, or I don't prepare, or I don't research enough about the other team, and that ends up costing me the match. And so I'm hoping that that's what I can improve on, but on paper I feel like I have a really strong team.
Yeah, I gotta agree, and don't feel too awful bad at picking yourself number 1. Obviously, me and Chase did too, so I mean, you're obviously seeing something right there. But I mean, part of the reasons I'd put you there is, I mean, you have Weavile that you've used before, and I mean, consistently really strong, and all these people that have that knockoff weakness, he can really hit hard. I mean, on top of that, I mean, the Mega Sableye and Chansey, I mean, that's just going to be awful to try to deal with. I don't care which team it is out here that has to deal with that. They're going to have to deal with that. And, I mean, that's just hard to pull something against. I mean, maybe y'all are seeing something that can easily counter it or whatever, but, I mean, that's just a solid couple right there. On top of, I mean, you really don't have any bad picks, and you have more than 6 that I feel consistently you could switch in and out. That way you could have a wider variety of Pokemon you use, and you're not predictable in which Pokemon you're bringing to the table. So, I had you at number 1 for those reasons. Chase?
You're very strategic. You know how to get the best potential out of your Pokemon. And just ultimately, you have been doing this. You have one of the most, probably the most experienced out of all of us doing this. I do see 4 of your Pokemon that are weak to Fairy. I'm sure you won't let that play any factor when picking your team against a really prominent Fairy type. But there is that. Fighting also is kind of but it's a very, very well-rounded roster, and I look forward to finding ways to beating it.
Agreed there.
I hope so.
'Cause I hope to goodness I'll beat you this year, Brandon. This season.
I'm just glad I got my mascot, to be honest.
I wanted it.
I needed the
So
ground
bad.
type, and even though it was another fairy weakness, I needed him.
In a sense, I got my mascot because until like 2 weeks ago, Volcanion wasn't real. So
True. I
got Raikou.
Yeah, I think one other thing that like I really wanted that like I didn't end up getting because originally I wanted Thunderous and Cobalion for my electric and steel types. Thunderous would have been good just for priority, and it also, like, I've used it in the past and it's been very effective. It's fast. And then I also wanted Cobalion instead of Scizor, to be honest, because of Justified. Like, it doesn't care about knockoffs. In fact, if you do, you get punished for knocking him, using knockoff. So I switch out from Mega Sableye or even Chansey going to Cobalion, and all of a sudden it's just like your attempt to weaken me and put pressure on me has just been completely reversed. However, I did end up picking up some stuff that ended up, I think, somewhat justifying my picks of of Scizor and Zapdos, because I have an Intimidator and a Rough Skinner in Druddigon and Krookodile. So I feel fairly justified in that.
But say, if you want to switch to Mega Scizor, I'll let it happen.
No way. No way.
Because I'll totally let you do that instead of Mega Sableye.
No.
But I won't let you switch back.
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Oh, shoot.
All
Figured
right.
I'd try.
Well, do you guys have any more comments or anything? I think we've pretty much run through everything and talked about everything. We hope everybody who watches this, whether you're involved this season or you're just checking it out, that you'll continue to keep watching the matches as they continue to happen. And of course, if we talked about your team in this video, which, of course, if you're playing the season we did, don't take any of this personally. Of course, we're just trying to look at the team as is. We hope that you'll apply what we say or maybe prove us wrong, and hope that you have a good season, that you shine, with what you got. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I look forward to playing every single person here. I hope that some of them prove me wrong and just sweep me. At the same time, though, I don't want to lose. So,
yeah.
I quite frankly, I hope that I beat everybody, but it's always going to have a better and more unique experience. But I look forward to this every season that we have, and I really enjoy it, and I hope that everybody out there does too. So, other than that, I mean, I look forward to playing everybody this season and just having a fun time.
Yeah,
right.
I look forward to beating all of you guys.
Look forward to beating you too.
Sweet.
Only in your dreams, Chase. I'm going to beat you this season.
That's the only thing I dream about it.
Well, that's all we have for the preseason power rankings. Thank you guys for being a part of this, and I hope everybody who watches this takes something away from it and enjoys the season.